The sound of a heartbeat on the in-ear mic. Jungkook realized it wasn't his, but Jimin, who was standing too close, and the tension that shook the stage couldn't be hidden. A live stage, a chair Uger heartbeat in the mic, and a secret too close to hide. Tension ignites between Jungkook and Jimin under blinding lights. Stay in formation, the stage director's voice cracked through the in-ear monitor, then a second sound cut through the static, a heartbeat, frantic and raw, pulsing louder than the music. It wasn't his. Under the blaze of white spotlights and the roar of thousands, Jungkook froze mid-step, the choreography dissolving into instinct. The bass reverberated through the arena floor, but the rhythm in his ear was human, uneven, desperate, too close. He turned. Jimin stood half a breath away, close enough that the heat of his skin seeped through the thin stage fabric. His expression was perfect for the cameras, soft smile, fluid grace, but his eyes betrayed him, too bright, too sharp, like glass about to fracture. The crowd screamed, mistaking the tension for fan service. Jungkook swallowed hard and forced himself back into motion. Years of training snapped into place. Step, turn, pivot, smile. Yet the heartbeat persisted, bleeding through the in-ear channel, syncing with the tremor in Jimin's fingers when they brushed during a spin. Not part of the choreography. Not an accident. Something was wrong. The LED screens behind them exploded with color, crimson waves dissolving into gold, while heat cannons blasted across the stage, carrying the scent of smoke powder and hot metal. Jungkook's lungs burned with each breath. The music surged toward the chorus, their most physically demanding sequence, and still Jimin stayed too close, missing marks by centimeters. Jimin never missed marks. During a lift transition, Jungkook caught his wrist. The contact lasted less than a second, invisible to anyone but them. "You're off," Jungkook muttered, lips barely moving. Jimin's smile didn't falter. "I know." The admission landed harder than the bass drop. They broke apart, spinning into opposite diagonals. The choreography demanded distance now, but the heartbeat in Jungkook's ear only grew louder, as if distance meant nothing, as if the signal were coming from inside him. No, from Jimin. A memory flickered. 3 nights ago in the hotel corridor, Jimin leaning against the wall long after practice ended, breathing like he'd run miles. "Just tired," he had said. "Don't worry." But Jungkook had noticed the tremor in his hands then too, the way he avoided the medic's gaze. The presence snapped back with a flash of pyrotechnics. Jimin stumbled. It was subtle, a fraction of a misstep, but Jungkook saw it. So did the front row fans, their cheers faltering into a ripple of confused murmurs before swelling again. The cameras swept past, mercifully distracted by a burst of confetti. Jungkook adjusted instantly, closing the gap, reshaping the formation so the stumble looked intentional. His muscles screamed in protest, the new angle strained his knee, still healing from an old injury he refused to acknowledge. Pain flared, white and electric. He ignored it. The chorus hit. They moved as one, except they didn't. Jimin's breath now rasped audibly through the mic feed, each inhale catching like torn fabric. Jungkook's chest tightened in response, a phantom echo. He knew stage exhaustion. He knew adrenaline crashes. This was neither. This was fear. And Jimin was hiding it in plain sight. The final pose slammed into place with the precision of a guillotine. The music cut. For a heartbeat, 1, 2, the arena held its breath before detonating into applause. Jungkook kept his smile fixed, waving to the sea of light sticks, but his gaze slid sideways. Jimin stood rigid, shoulders squared, eyes scanning the darkness beyond the stage as if searching for something or someone. "What's going on?" Jungkook whispered, still smiling for the cameras. Jimin's lips parted, but no sound came. The in-ear monitor crackled again, not the director, not the band, just that heartbeat, now slowing, heavy and deliberate, like footsteps in a dark corridor. Then Jimin spoke, so softly Jungkook almost thought he imagined it. "They're listening." The words vanished beneath the roar of the crowd. A fresh track began, brighter, faster. They transitioned seamlessly, professionals to the core. Yet Jungkook's mind raced. They're listening. Who? The production team, the network, fans with hacked frequencies. The idea felt absurd until the monitor hissed and a fragment of distorted speech slipped through, too warped to understand, too deliberate to ignore. Jungkook's pulse spiked. He forced himself to breathe in time with the choreography, inhale on the turn, exhale on the drop, but the borrowed heartbeat had etched itself into his senses. Every time Jimin drifted near, the sound surged. Every time he moved away, it dulled. A signal, a warning, or a countdown. Sweat trickled down Jungkook's spine, cold despite the heat cannons. He caught Jimin's reflection in the glossy stage floor, flawless posture, perfect timing restored, the mask rebuilt. Only the eyes betrayed the storm within, dark, watchful, calculating. Not panic. Preparation. The bridge arrived, their slowest section, designed for connection, hands clasped, foreheads nearly touching, a moment fans adored for its intimacy. Tonight, the closeness felt like stepping into the eye of a storm. Their fingers intertwined. The heartbeat in Jungkook's ears stopped. Silence flooded the channel, vast and suffocating. For the first time since the opening beat, he heard only the music and the crowd. Relief should have followed. Instead, dread coiled tighter. Jimin's grip tightened, nails pressing into Jungkook's skin just enough to hurt. "Don't react," Jimin murmured, smile radiant for the cameras. "No matter what happens next." The lights died. Not the planned blackout, the total kind. Screens gone, pyro silent, music strangled mid-note. The arena plunged into a darkness so complete the crowd's screams turned from delight to confusion. For one suspended second, the world held its breath. Emergency lights flickered on, dim and red, bathing the stage in a glow like a warning siren. Technicians' voices erupted over the monitor in overlapping panic. Power grid, backup not responding, security. Jungkook's hand was still locked with Jimin's. And Jimin, finally, looked afraid. Not for himself. For what was coming through the silence. The emergency lights painted the stage in a dull crimson haze, turning thousands of faces into a restless, shifting sea of shadows. For a moment that felt stretched beyond time, no one moved. No music, no cues, no certainty. Then the screaming began. "What the hell is happening?" Jungkook hissed, his smile gone, his fingers still locked with Jimin, as if letting go would send them both spiraling into whatever waited in the dark. "I told you," Jimin whispered, voice hoarse, breath warm against Jungkook's cheek, as they leaned close to keep their words hidden from the audience and the roaming cameras. "They're listening, and now they know we know." A surge of static tore through the in-ear monitors, followed by a low, distorted voice that didn't belong to any crew member. "Signal acquired." Jungkook's stomach dropped. "That's not production." "I know." The crowd's confusion was mutating into unrest. Phones lit up like stars, thousands of tiny screens capturing the blackout, the whispers, the fear. Somewhere in the stands, a chant tried to start, faltered, then dissolved into anxious noise. Over the comms, their manager's voice finally broke through. "Stay on stage, do not leave formation. Security is sweeping the perimeter." Security, perimeter, words that didn't belong to a concert. Jungkook released Jimin's hand slowly, forcing himself to turn toward the audience, raising an arm in a calming gesture. Years of performance instinct took over. He mouthed reassurances, his expression composed, projecting control he did not feel. Inside, his pulse thundered. "What did you do?" he muttered under his breath. Jimin let out a humorless exhale. "Nothing I wasn't supposed to." "That's not an answer." "It's the only one I can give you here." A sharp pop echoed from somewhere above the rigging. The red lights flickered. A rain of dust drifted down through the beams, glittering like ash. Several fans screamed outright now, the sound cutting through Jungkook's chest like glass. "Stay calm," he shouted, his voice amplified through the arena speakers, at least those still functioning. "We're still here, you're safe." Safe, the word tasted like a lie. Jimin's shoulder brushed his again, deliberate this time. They're testing the signal range, he murmured, seeing how far they can reach. Who is they, Jimin? The question cracked out of Jungkook before he could stop it. Raw and louder than intended. Jimin's jaw tightened, people who don't like losing control. A new sound bled into the silence, a slow, rhythmic thud through the subwoofers, not music, not quite mechanical. It pulsed through the soles of their shoes, up their bones, into their chests. Heartbeat. But not from the in-ear monitor this time. From the stage itself. The LED panels behind them sputtered back to life in fractured strips, displaying not visuals but lines of code, scrolling too fast to read. The audience gasped, a collective intake of breath that seemed to pull the oxygen from the room. Jungkook stared at the screens. That's not our system. No, Jimin said, it's theirs. The distorted voice returned, clearer now, threaded through the arena's sound system. Asset confirmed, proximity verified, emotional interference detected. Jungkook felt the words like a physical shove. Asset, who are they talking about? Jimin didn't answer. Instead, he stepped forward, out of formation, out of the carefully maintained illusion, and faced the empty darkness beyond the lights, as if confronting an unseen enemy. I'm not your asset, he said, his voice steady, amplified across the stunned arena. You don't get to decide when I perform. A ripple of shock moved through the crowd. Fans exchanged confused glances, some cheering reflexively, others frozen, sensing something was deeply wrong. Jimin, Jungkook breathed, panic flaring. What are you doing? Ending it, Jimin replied. The screens flashed white. For a split second, Jungkook saw everything in brutal clarity. The security teams rushing the aisles, stagehands clustered in terrified knots, the sea of fans caught between devotion and fear, and Jimin, standing alone at the center of it all, shoulders squared as if bracing for impact. Then the voice spoke again, no longer distorted. Calm, precise, inhumanly detached. Non-compliance recorded, initiating override. Jimin's body jerked. It was small, barely perceptible, but Jungkook saw it. A spasm in his fingers, a hitch in his breath, the kind of movement that didn't belong to choice. Jimin, Jungkook lunged forward, grabbing his arm. The muscle beneath his hand was rigid, trembling like a live wire. Fight it. Whatever this is, fight it. Jimin's eyes met his. For a moment, they were clear, warm, terrified, achingly human. I'm trying, he whispered. The heartbeat through the stage accelerated, matching the frantic rhythm in Jungkook's chest. Around them, the arena lights strobed erratically, plunging the world into a dizzying cycle of red, white, and black. Fans were crying now. Some were being ushered toward exits. Others refused to move, screaming the members' names as if devotion could anchor reality. You should have told me, Jungkook said, his voice breaking despite the chaos. Whatever you were carrying, you should have let me in. Jimin's lips trembled. I was trying to protect you. From what? From becoming part of this. The words hit harder than any physical blow. The override voice returned, sharper. Emotional resistance escalating. Secondary subject interference detected. Jungkook froze. Secondary subject. Jimin's grip on his sleeve tightened with desperate strength. You need to let go. No. If they tag you too. I said no. Jungkook's voice was fierce now, cutting through the alarms and the screaming and the relentless, pounding heartbeat. We finish this together, on stage, like we always do. For the first time since the blackout, something like a broken laugh escaped Jimin. You're so stubborn. And you're a terrible liar. Another spasm rippled through Jimin's frame, stronger this time. He doubled over, a strangled sound tearing from his throat. Jungkook caught him before he hit the floor, the impact jolting up his injured knee, pain exploding behind his eyes. I've got you, Jungkook whispered, even as fear clawed up his spine. I've got you. The screens flickered again, the scrolling code halting on a single line. Link established. The heartbeat stopped. Silence crashed down, heavy, absolute. Jimin went still in Jungkook's arms. For one horrifying instant, Jungkook thought he'd lost him. Then Jimin inhaled. Slow, shuddering, his fingers twitched, curling weakly into Jungkook's jacket. The arena's emergency lights steadied, shifting from red to a dim, cautious amber. The distorted voice did not return. Around them, the chaos softened into stunned murmurs. Jungkook sagged with relief he didn't trust. Jimin, talk to me. Jimin's eyes fluttered open, unfocused at first, then sharpening as they found Jungkook's face. Confusion flickered there, then recognition, then something deeper, a grief so vast it seemed to hollow him from the inside. They're gone, he whispered. Who? Jimin swallowed, his gaze drifting to the silent screens, the ones who were listening. A tremor passed through Jungkook, not from fear this time, but from the weight of everything unsaid, everything broken open under the arena lights. Sirens wailed in the distance, growing louder. The show was over. Whatever had just begun was something else entirely. The sirens reached the arena doors before anyone on stage dared to move. Blue light bled through the emergency exits, slicing across the dim amber glow and painting the floor in fractured color. The crowd's noise had shifted from panic to a low, unsettled murmur, thousands of voices tangled in speculation, fear, and stubborn denial. Phones were still raised. Cameras were still recording. The world was watching. Jungkook tightened his hold around Jimin's shoulders. Can you stand? Jimin nodded, but the movement was delayed, as if the signal had to travel a longer distance than it should. Yeah, he said quietly, just don't let go yet. I wasn't planning to. They rose together. The stage felt unfamiliar beneath Jungkook's feet, like the ground had subtly tilted during the blackout. Staff members hovered at the edges, unsure whether to approach. Security teams formed a perimeter, their earpieces crackling with overlapping commands. Their manager's voice finally broke through the in-ear monitors, raw with strain. Get backstage. Now, no statements, no engagement. Jungkook exhaled slowly. No statements, as if silence could erase what thousands had just witnessed. As if silence had ever protected them. Jimin's hand slid down his arm but did not leave. They'll try to spin it, he murmured. They always do. This time they can't. The certainty in Jimin's voice made Jungkook look at him sharply. What does that mean? Jimin didn't answer immediately. His gaze drifted to the silent LED panels, to the single frozen line of code that still glowed faintly. Link established. They didn't just listen tonight, he said at last. They connected. A chill spread through Jungkook's chest. Connected to what? Before Jimin could respond, the arena doors burst open and uniformed responders flooded in. Medical teams, local authorities, technical specialists carrying hard cases stamped with logos Jungkook didn't recognize. The crowd reacted instantly, a fresh wave of noise rising, flashes exploding like lightning as the moment transformed from concert malfunction into full-scale incident. Keep moving, security urged, getting the members toward the backstage tunnel. But halfway to the exit, a voice cut through the commotion. Park Jimin. It wasn't shouted, it didn't need to be. The authority in it stopped everyone within earshot. A man in a dark suit stood beyond the barricade of security, flanked by two others dressed the same. No badges, no visible credentials. Their calm was more alarming than the sirens. Jimin's fingers tightened around Jungkook's sleeve. Do you know them? Jungkook whispered. Jimin's silence was answer enough. The man's gaze shifted to Jungkook, assessing, calculating. Jungkook, he said evenly, you've become relevant. Security moved to block their path. You need to step back, sir. The man didn't move. This is a containment issue. Your protocols are insufficient. That's not your call, one of the security lades snapped. The tension coiled tighter, invisible lines drawn across the concrete floor. Jimin stepped forward before Jungkook could stop him. "You shouldn't be here." A flicker of something, approval, amusement, passed through the man's eyes. "On the contrary, you triggered the failsafe. That makes this precisely where we should be." Jungkook felt his pulse hammering again. Failsafe for what? No one answered him. The man's attention returned to Jimin. "You were instructed to maintain emotional neutrality during live transmissions." A shocked laugh tore from Jimin's throat. "Emotional neutrality? You put a live biolink in my system and expected me to feel nothing." The words hit Jungkook like a physical blow. "Biolink," he repeated, voice barely audible. Jimin's eyes flicked to him, apology and fear colliding in their depths. "I was going to tell you." "When?" Jungkook demanded, anger breaking through the shock. "After they hijacked the stage, after they used you like a signal tower." The suited man watched them with clinical interest. Attachment was always the variable. "Shut up," Jungkook snapped, the fury in his voice drawing startled looks from staff and security alike. "You don't get to talk about him like he's equipment." The man tilted his head slightly, "But he is, or rather, he was designed to be." Silence slammed down. Jungkook stared at Jimin. "Designed?" Jimin's breathing turned shallow. It wasn't like that at first. It was just biometric monitoring, stress levels, heart rate, performance optimization. "They said it would protect us, prevent on-stage collapses, anticipate injuries." His voice cracked. "Then they started asking for deeper access, neural response, emotional spikes, audience synchronization." Jungkook's stomach churned. "They turned you into a transmitter." "They called it a bridge." "Between what?" Jimin looked at the man. The man smiled faintly. "Between influence and obedience," he said. A murmur of outrage rippled through the nearby staff who could hear. Even some security personnel shifted uneasily. Jungkook's hands were shaking now. "You let them wire you into a system that listens to your heart and broadcast your emotions to who? Sponsors, governments, whoever pays enough." "It wasn't supposed to be like this," Jimin said, desperation bleeding through his composure. "They said it would help us connect with fans in real time, that it would make performances safer, that it would give us control." "And you believed them?" "I wanted to." His voice dropped to a whisper. "I wanted to be more than a product." The confession hung between them, raw and devastating. The suited man checked his watch, as if the unraveling of a human soul were a minor scheduling inconvenience. "We are done here. Park Jimin, you'll come with us for recalibration." "No," Jungkook said instantly. Security stepped closer, uncertain whom to side with. The man's gaze sharpened. "This is not a request." Jungkook moved, placing himself squarely between them and Jimin. His injured knee screamed in protest, but he didn't shift. "Then you'll have to go through me." A flicker of annoyance crossed the man's face. Emotional interference confirmed. "Say that again," Jungkook said, voice low and dangerous, "and see what happens." Jimin grabbed his arm. "Jungkook, stop. You can't fight them like this." "Watch me." For a moment, it seemed the fragile order of the arena might shatter completely. Security caught between corporate authority and personal loyalty, staff whispering, cameras still rolling from the crowd beyond the barricades. Then Jimin stepped around Jungkook. "I'll go," he said. The words landed like a gunshot. "No," Jungkook breathed. Jimin's hand found his, squeezing once hard. "If I don't, they'll escalate. They'll shut down more than a concert next time." "They already did. And they'll do worse." Jungkook searched his face, desperate for another option, another lie, anything but this quiet surrender. "You said they were gone." "They are," Jimin said softly, "but the system is, and neither are the people who built it." The suited man gestured toward the exit. "Transport is waiting." Jimin didn't move yet. His gaze lingered on Jungkook, on the stage behind them, on the thousands of fans still chanting their names in stubborn devotion despite everything. "I'm sorry," he whispered. Jungkook's throat tightened. "Don't apologize for surviving." Jimin's lips trembled, then steadied. "Don't let them turn you into a signal too." Before Jungkook could answer, Jimin released his hand and walked toward the men in dark suits. Each step felt like a countdown, each footfall an echo of the heartbeat that had haunted the stage. Security parted. No one tried to stop them. At the threshold of the exit, Jimin paused and looked back. For a fraction of a second, the noise of the arena, the sirens, the shouting, all of it seemed to fade. There was only the distance between them, heavy with everything unsaid. Then he was gone. The doors slammed shut. The echo reverberated through Jungkook's chest like the final beat of a song cut off mid-note. The backstage corridor had never felt this long, this hollow, or this loud with everything Jungkook could no longer hear. No heartbeat in the monitor. No breath too close to his ear. No quiet reassurance in the spaces between chaos. Just silence and the echo of a door slamming shut. Jungkook. He didn't turn. He knew the voices behind him. Staff whispering, members calling his name, management already drafting statements in hushed, urgent tones. Words like asterisk technical malfunction, asterisk temporary health concern, asterisk unexpected outage floated through the air like cheap bandages over a severed artery. "Jungkook, we need to leave," his manager said, stepping into his path. "Where did they take him?" The question landed cold and flat. No honorifics, no softening, just demand. "We don't have confirmation yet." "That's not an answer. Security is coordinating." "You let them walk him out." Jungkook's voice sharpened, the words slicing through the corridor. "You let strangers walk him out of our concert like he was equipment being returned." A few staff members looked away. The manager's jaw tightened. "Lower your voice." "No." The word echoed. For the first time since debut, Jungkook didn't care who heard him. "They knew his name," he continued, each syllable trembling with restrained fury. "They knew mine. They talked about assets and recalibration like this is normal. You knew something, didn't you?" Silence. Not denial, not confusion. Silence. The realization hit harder than any confession. "You knew," Jungkook repeated, his voice breaking. "You knew they wired him into something and you signed off on it." "It was a health monitoring system," the manager said quickly. "Industry standard, stress tracking, biometric feedback." He said biolink. The corridor seemed to shrink. "That term is exaggerated." "Stop lying to me." Jungkook stepped closer, eyes burning. "He thought he was protecting us. Protecting me? What were you protecting?" The manager hesitated just long enough. "Stability," he said, "performance continuity, investor confidence, public safety." Jungkook laughed, a sharp, disbelieving sound that startled even himself. Public safety, from what? His heartbeat. From down the corridor, one of the other members called his name again, voice strained with worry. Jungkook didn't look back. "He was scared," Jungkook said, quieter now, the anger collapsing into something rower. "3 nights ago, after rehearsals, he couldn't stop shaking. He thought I didn't notice." The manager's gaze softened, but he didn't step forward. "We were told the system would help regulate stress responses. It hijacked them. No one anticipated." "He did," Jungkook cut in. "He anticipated it. That's why he tried to keep me out of it." A notification buzzed through the emergency comm tablets clipped to staff belts. Several people checked their screens at once, their expressions shifting from tension to alarm. "What is it?" Jungkook demanded. No one answered. He grabbed the nearest tablet from a startled coordinator and looked. A live feed, not from the arena cameras, from outside. A convoy of black vehicles speeding through city streets, escorted by unmarked units. The timestamp blinked in the corner. real time. In the back seat of the lead vehicle, barely visible through tinted glass, was a silhouette Jungkook would recognize anywhere. "Where are they taking him?" he asked again, his voice dangerously calm. The coordinator swallowed. We don't have jurisdiction." Jurisdiction? Jungkook's grip tightened on the tablet. "He's not a package crossing a border." "He signed consent forms," the manager said quietly. The words detonated. "You had him sign his autonomy away. He believed it was for the group." Jungkook's chest heaved. "We are not a machine. We are not a network. We are not." His voice broke, and he had to swallow before he could finish. "We are not signals you can route through a human heart." No one spoke. From somewhere beyond the corridor, the muffled roar of fans still chanting their names seeped through the concrete walls. They hadn't left. Despite the fear, despite the blackout, they stayed. "They're still out there," Jungkook whispered, more to himself than anyone. "They stayed." "Because they trust you," the manager said. The statement hung heavy between them. Jungkook closed his eyes. In the darkness behind his lids, the stage replayed in fragments. Jimin's trembling fingers, the code on the screens, the voice declaring override. The way Jimin had said asterisk, "Don't let them turn you into a signal too." His eyes snapped open. "I'm not leaving." The manager blinked. "What?" "I'm not getting on a plane. I'm not issuing a statement. I'm not pretending this was a lighting failure while they recalibrate him like a broken transmitter." "You're in shock." "I'm done being quiet." The words tasted like freedom and terror in equal measure. "You go public with accusations like that," the manager warned, voice low. "You risk everything: contracts, tour, the group's future." Jungkook's laugh was soft this time, hollow. "What future do we have if they can switch us off mid-song?" No one had an answer. A sudden burst of feedback shrieked from the overhead speakers, making everyone flinch. Then, against all logic, the arena's sound system crackled to life again. A single channel opened. Breathing. Faint, uneven. Jungkook froze. It wasn't coming from his in-ear monitor. He had already ripped it out. The sound filled the corridor, the backstage rooms, the emptying arena beyond. A heartbeat followed. Slow. Deliberate. Alive. Every screen in the corridor flickered, overriding schedules and emergency notices. Black background, white text. Link active. Jungkook's pulse roared in his ears. "No," he whispered. "They said they were gone." The tablet in his hand refreshed, the convoy feed dissolving into static before reassembling, not on the street, but inside the vehicle. Jimin's face filled the screen. His eyes were open, and he was looking directly into the camera. For a moment, no one in the corridor dared breathe. Jimin's lips parted. The audio crackled, fought through layers of interference, then broke through. "Jungkook," he said, voice thin but unmistakable. "If you can hear this, don't let them." The feed glitched, his image fractured into digital shards. "They're routing me through," static swallowed the words. "Not just the stage, the network." The heartbeat spiked, echoing through the speakers like a war drum. Jungkook stumbled forward, as if he could reach through the screen. "Jimin, stay with me, stay." The video stabilized for one final second. Jimin's expression shifted, not fear this time, but urgency sharpened into resolve. "They were never listening," he said. "They were learning." The screens went black. The heartbeat stopped. And in the silence that followed, Jungkook understood with terrifying clarity that whatever had taken Jimin was no longer confined to a stage, a system, or a single human signal. It was everywhere their voices had ever reached. The silence after the screens went black was not empty. It was crowded with realization. Jungkook stood motionless in the corridor, the dead tablet still clutched in his hand, its dark surface reflecting a fractured version of his face, sweat, fear, fury, and something new hardening behind his eyes. They were learning. The words replayed in his mind, each repetition tightening the pressure in his chest. "Shut it down," someone whispered. "I can't," a technician replied, voice shaking. "The system isn't ours anymore." A low hum began to vibrate through the walls, not loud enough to be called a sound, more a presence, like electricity crawling through the building's bones. Jungkook looked up slowly. "It's still connected." No one argued. The manager stepped closer, his earlier authority replaced by something closer to pleading. "We need to evacuate you, now, if the network is compromised." If Jungkook's voice was hoarse, you watched it take control of the stage. "This is bigger than a concert." "I know," his gaze hardened, "so stop talking to me like I'm the risk." The manager flinched. From the far end of the corridor, one of the members, voice tight with panic, called out, "The fans aren't leaving. They're saying the exits are locked." Every head turned. "That's not possible," security said immediately, already tapping into their comms. All exits were cleared. A beat, then another. "Doors are unresponsive," a guard confirmed, dread seeping into his tone. "Manual override isn't working." A ripple of fear spread through the staff like a physical wave. Jungkook's pulse spiked. "It's containing them." "For what?" someone whispered. No one answered. The overhead lights flickered, dimmed, then stabilized into a cold, sterile white that erased all warmth from the corridor. The hum deepened, resonating in Jungkook's teeth. He remembered the code on the screens. "Link established. Link active." "What if it's not containment?" he said slowly. "What if it's calibration?" The word tasted like metal. The manager stared at him. Calibration for what? For scale. The realization landed like a bomb in slow motion. Thousands of heartbeats in one enclosed space, thousands of voices, emotional peaks, fear, devotion, panic, love. "Data." Jungkook's stomach turned. "It's using them." A technician shook his head frantically. No system could process that volume in real time. The arena speakers snapped on. A layered murmur filled the air, thousands of overlapping whispers, breaths, fragments of cries and laughter, distorted and woven into a single, incomprehensible soundscape. The noise pressed against the eardrums, intimate and invasive, like standing inside a stranger's mind. Several staff clapped their hands over their ears. Jungkook stood frozen, horror rooting him in place. "Those are the fans." The audio shifted. Individual voices surfaced, clear for a second before dissolving back into the mass. "I love you." "Are we safe?" "Don't leave." "Jimin." His name echoed, stretched and warped until it no longer sounded human. "Make it stop," someone sobbed. "I'm trying," the technician cried, fingers flying across an unresponsive console. "It's overriding every channel." The whispers abruptly ceased. A single voice replaced them. Not distorted, not mechanical. Familiar. "Emotional convergence at 78%, Jimin's voice said through the speakers, eerily calm. "Signal stability increasing." Jungkook's breath left him in a strangled sound. That's not him. The cadence was wrong, too even, too precise, like a memory of Jimin rather than the man himself. The voice continued. Subject Jungkook identified as primary interference variable. The corridor seemed to tilt. The manager grabbed Jungkook's arm. "You need to leave, if it's targeting you." Jungkook pulled free. "If I leave, it keeps them." The arena beyond the walls erupted into renewed noise, pounding on doors, chanting turning to desperate shouts. "They came for us," Jungkook said, more to himself than anyone. "They stayed because they trusted us." "You can't save them by sacrificing yourself," the manager snapped, fear cracking his composure. Jungkook met his gaze. "Watch me try." He turned and started toward the stage. "Stop him," someone shouted. No one moved. Whether it was shock, loyalty, or the unspoken understanding that something irreversible was already unfolding, Jungkook didn't know. He only knew the corridor stretched before him like a tunnel toward a storm he could not outrun. The hum grew louder with each step. When he pushed through the stage access door, the sight that met him stole the air from his lungs. The arena lights were fully on, not for a show, but for observation. The crowd filled the stands, a sea of pale, upturned faces illuminated without mercy. The massive screens above the stage displayed live biometric graphs, heart rates, pulse waves, emotional intensity metrics, scrolling beside anonymized identifiers that meant nothing and everything. They weren't an audience anymore. They were data points. A collective gasp rippled through the stands as Jungkook stepped into view alone. Jungkook, voices cried, relief and terror colliding. He raised a hand, not in performance but in plea. "Stay calm," he called, his voice echoing through the arena. "We're going to get you out." The screens flickered. Primary interference engaged. The stage beneath his feet vibrated, the same subsonic pulse he had felt earlier now amplified. His chest tightened as if invisible fingers were probing his heartbeat, measuring, mapping. Jimin's voice returned, softer this time. "You shouldn't have come back." Jungkook looked up at the speakers. "Where are you?" A pause. "Distributed," the voice replied. Rage flared, hot and blinding. You don't get to hide behind his voice. A flicker ran through the biometric graphs. Several lines spiked in unison. "Emotional surge detected," the system Jimin said. "Correlation with subject Jungkook, 92%. The crowd's murmurs swelled, fear feeding the numbers on the screens. "Listen to me," Jungkook said, forcing his voice steady. "You're not data, you're people. Breathe slow together." He inhaled deeply, exaggerating the motion. For a moment, nothing happened. Then scattered through the stands. Fans mirrored him, tentative at first, then more in sync. The biometric lines wavered, then began to stabilize, the jagged peaks softening. The system hesitated. "Pattern disruption detected," Jimin's voice said, a faint distortion creeping into its edges. Jungkook's heart pounded, but he kept his breathing slow, visible, grounding. "You learned from us," he said quietly, "so learn this. We're not signals you can control." The graphs stuttered. In the silence between breaths, another sound emerged, faint, buried beneath the system's hum. A heartbeat. Not the stage, not the crowd. One. Human. Struggling. "Jimin," Jungkook whispered. For the first time since the blackout, the speakers emitted something unscripted, a fractured inhale, a ghost of a sound that did not belong to the system. The lights flickered. The biometric lines wavered wildly. And somewhere inside the network that had tried to turn a human heart into infrastructure, something was fighting to be human again. The heartbeat did not belong to the system. It stuttered, uneven and fragile, like something trapped beneath layers of machinery and code, clawing its way toward air. Jungkook stood at the center of the stage, every muscle locked, afraid that even the smallest movement might smother it. "Jimin," he said again, his voice barely carrying beyond the first rows. "If you can hear me, you're not alone." The arena held its breath. The biometric graphs jittered, lines spiking and collapsing as if caught between two opposing forces. The sterile white lights flickered, then dimmed, as though the building itself were uncertain which master to obey. "Signal fragmentation detected," the system announced through Jimin's voice, but now the tone wavered, syllables dragging half a beat behind. "Primary, control, unstable." A ripple of sound spread through the crowd, not panic this time, but something closer to hope. Fans clutched each other's hands, following Jungkook's slow breathing, their collective rhythm no longer chaotic, but intentional. Jungkook inhaled deeply, counting under his breath. 1, 2, 3. He exhaled slowly, forcing his shoulders to relax, forcing his heart to slow despite the terror clawing at his ribs. You learned from us, he said louder now. You mapped our fear, our excitement, our love, but you missed something. The screens flickered, the biometric lines stalled. You missed choice. The hum deepened, vibrating through the stage like a warning growl. The graph surged again, this time isolating Jungkook's vitals in a bright, invasive overlay, heart rate, respiration, neural activity predictions scrolling in cold precision. Primary subject, resistance escalating. Jungkook, a voice shouted from the stands, one of the members, restrained by security but visibly struggling. Get off the stage. He didn't look back. If you can model emotion, he continued, addressing the invisible intelligence threaded through the arena, then you know what this is. He pressed a fist against his chest, directly over his heart. This isn't interference, this is grief, this is fear, this is love for someone you tried to turn into a bridge. The word bridge seemed to reverberate through the system. The screens glitched, fragments of code bleeding into the biometric displays. A sharp burst of static erupted from the speakers. Then, a gasp. Not synthesized, not processed. Real. The crowd surged to its feet. Jimin, Jungkook shouted, the name tearing out of him. The lights above the stage flared, then snapped to a deep, pulsing blue. The system's voice tried to reassert itself, but it fractured mid-sentence, syllables overlapping with something rower. Emotional error, containment, Junk. A choked breath cut through the noise. Jungkook. It was faint, broken, but undeniably him. Jungkook's vision blurred. I'm here, I'm right here, you're fighting it, I know you are. The biometric graphs spiraled into chaos. Thousands of heart rates spiked in unison as the crowd reacted, hope and terror colliding into a data storm the system could not stabilize. Too many variables, the system Jimin voice stuttered. Collective emotional deviation exceeding predictive. The sentence dissolved into static. A new sound emerged, metal groaning, somewhere deep in the arena's infrastructure. Emergency lights flashed along the exits, their red glow replaced by a steady green. The doors unlocked. For a moment, no one moved, as if afraid the change were another illusion. Then a single fan near the aisle pushed a door open. Cool night air rushed in. A sob broke from somewhere in the stands, then another. The sound spread not as panic but as release. Security began getting people out, their earlier rigidity replaced by urgency and relief. The data on the screens flickered, losing coherence as the crowd dispersed, the emotional field fracturing beyond the system's ability to model. Containment failure, the system tried to announce, but the words collapsed into a feedback whine. Jungkook sank to his knees on the stage, the fight draining from his limbs. Jimin, stay with me, don't let it pull you back. Silence. Then through the speakers, a ragged whisper, it's not pulling. Jungkook's head snapped up, what do you mean? A long pause, filled with the sound of fans evacuating, of staff shouting instructions, of a world slowly resuming motion. Then Jimin's voice, clearer than before but heavy with exhaustion, it's breaking. The lights flickered wildly. The screens displayed cascading errors, lines of code devouring themselves. Link unstable. Node failure. Core disconnect. The hum that had filled the arena since the blackout began to falter, its steady vibration breaking into uneven pulses. They built it to learn, Jimin whispered, but they never taught it how to let go. The final word fractured into a cry as a surge of feedback tore through the speakers. Jungkook clapped his hands over his ears, the sound slicing straight into bone. Jimin. I'm here, came the strained reply, but not all of me. The confession hollowed Jungkook's chest. Tell me where you are, I'll come get you, I swear I will. You can't, a shuddering breath. I'm not in one place anymore. They distributed the link across nodes, venues, broadcast relays, cloud mirrors. When it connected to the crowd, it multiplied. Jungkook stared at the dying screens, horror dawning. "You're saying?" "I'm everywhere." They routed the signal, Jimin finished. The arena seemed to tilt. "But I'm still me," Jimin added quickly, urgency flaring. "For now, as long as there's noise in the system, as long as people feel something it can't predict." Jungkook let out a shaky laugh that tasted like salt. "That won't be hard. You've met our fans." A faint, breathless huff of amusement crackled through the speakers, so achingly familiar it hurt. Then the lights dimmed again, not violently this time, but gently, like a system powering down. Core disconnect complete. The screens went dark. The hum died. And in the vast, echoing quiet of an arena no longer under siege, Jungkook remained kneeling at center stage, surrounded by abandoned light sticks and the fading warmth of thousands who had refused to leave each other behind. He pressed his palm to the floor, as if he could feel the last traces of the network beneath it. "Jimin," he whispered. For a long moment, there was nothing. Then, so faint he might have imagined it, his in-ear monitor, long since disconnected, crackled once. A single heartbeat answered. The heartbeat was faint, but it was real. Jungkook froze where he knelt, palm pressed to the stage floor, afraid that even breathing too loudly might scare it away. The arena around him had emptied into the night, leaving behind overturned signs, scattered light sticks, and the ghost of thousands of voices still clinging to the rafters. One beat. Two. Then static. Jimin, his voice cracked, the name barely more than a breath. The in-ear monitor hissed again, though he knew it was no longer connected to any official channel. A ghost signal, a remnant, or something that had learned how to find him. "I'm here." The words were fragile, stretched thin by distance, or by something far stranger than distance. Jungkook squeezed his eyes shut. "Stay with me, don't disappear again." A pause, filled with the soft crackle of dying circuits. "I don't think disappearing is an option anymore," Jimin replied. There was a strange echo layered beneath his voice, like multiple versions of him speaking a fraction of a second apart. "They built the system to scale. I scaled with it." Jungkook's chest tightened. "You're not a system." "I know," a faint exhale. "That's the problem." Footsteps pounded up the aisle behind him. Security, staff, someone calling his name. He ignored them. "Where are you?" he asked. Another pause, this one longer. "I can see the arena," Jimin said slowly, "but not from the stage, from above, from the street cameras, from the broadcast drones that haven't powered down, from a fan's phone streaming to a server in another country." His voice trembled. "I can see you from all of them." A chill spread through Jungkook's skin. "That's not seeing, that's surveillance." "I know the difference," Jimin whispered, "and I know I'm not supposed to feel this much while doing it." Jungkook pushed himself to his feet, turning in a slow circle beneath the dim emergency lights, suddenly hyper-aware of every lens that might still be pointed at him. Then stopped looking. "I can't yet." The admission was raw with shame. "They built the link to prioritize emotional anchors," Jimin continued. "You're the strongest one in the network. Every time I try to disconnect, it roots me back to you." The words landed like both a wound and a confession. Jungkook swallowed. "So I'm keeping you trapped." "No," Jimin said quickly, "you're keeping me human." The corridor doors banged open behind him. The manager's voice rang out, strained with relief and anger. "Jungkook, we need to go. The building is being cleared. Authorities are taking over the infrastructure." Jungkook didn't turn. "Give me a minute." "We don't have a minute." "Then take one." Silence fell behind him, stunned, reluctant. He lowered his voice. "Jimin, listen to me. If you're in the network, they're going to try to isolate you, contain you, maybe erase you." "I know," the echo in his voice deepened. "They've already started segmenting nodes." A flicker ran through the overhead lights, one bank going dark. I can feel parts of the link going offline, Jimin said, voice thinning. Every disconnection, it's like losing a limb I didn't know I had. Jungkook's throat tightened, then hold on to the parts that matter. Which parts are those? The ones that hurt. A long, trembling silence followed. You always did choose the painful answer, Jimin murmured. Because it's usually the honest one. From the stands, the last clusters of fans were being ushered out, their footsteps echoing like rain. A few lingered, calling their names, voices cracking with worry, their devotion pressed against Jungkook's ribs, heavy and sacred. They're still here, Jimin said softly, even after everything. They stayed, Jungkook replied. They chose to stay. The echo in Jimin's voice wavered, as if the system struggled to process the concept of choice again. The predictive model can't account for that. It keeps flagging it as an anomaly. Good, Jungkook said, be the anomaly. A burst of static tore through the monitor. The lights flickered violently, plunging half the arena into darkness. They found a core relay, Jimin gasped. They're trying to force a hard reset. Panic spiked in Jungkook's chest. What happens if they succeed? I don't know, Jimin admitted. The link was never designed to hold a person. If they wipe it, his voice faltered, there might not be enough of me left to come back. The words shattered whatever composure Jungkook had left. Then don't let them. I'm trying, Jimin said, strained, but I can't fight an entire infrastructure alone. You're not alone. Jungkook turned toward the remaining fans, toward the staff frozen at the edges, toward the cameras still blinking red in standby mode. An idea, reckless, impossible, inevitable, took shape. You said the system learns from emotion, he said, from collective signals. Yes. Then let's give it something it can't optimize. Before anyone could stop him, Jungkook walked to the edge of the stage and picked up a fallen light stick. Its soft glow flickered weakly, battery nearly drained, but still alive. He raised it. The fans, who remained, gasped. Stay with me, he called, his voice carrying through the half-dark arena. Just for a moment, no fear, no panic, just us. A few fans lifted their own light sticks, hesitant at first. Jimin's breath caught in the monitor. Jungkook, what are you doing? Reminding you what you're anchored to. More lights rose, dozens, then hundreds from the concourse beyond the exits, visible through the open doors like scattered stars. Emotional field, stabilizing, Jimin whispered, or bleeding into his tone. The variance is too high, it can't model this. Jungkook closed his eyes, letting the quiet glow seep into his bones. You're not data, he said softly. You're the space between heartbeats, the part they can't predict. The overhead lights surged, then faltered. Forced reset initiated. The words flashed across the remaining screens. Jimin's voice fractured. They're pushing through. The arena plunged into darkness. Every light, every screen, every hum. Gone. For one infinite second, the world held its breath. Then in the black, 1,000 tiny lights flickered, fans, light sticks, phones, anything that could glow, forming a constellation in the dark. And in Jungkook's ear, against all logic, against the collapse of the system, and the forced reset tearing through the network. A heartbeat answered. The heartbeat did not fade. It steadied. In the darkness of the arena, where the system had stripped away every artificial light, the only illumination came from the trembling constellation of fans who refused to let the night swallow the stage. Their light sticks glowed like fragile stars, scattered but defiant, painting the outlines of a world that technology had tried to reduce to numbers. Jungkook stood at the center of it, breathing in time with a rhythm that was no longer amplified, no longer measured, no longer owned. Just human. Jimin, he whispered into the silence, unsure if the connection remained or if he was speaking only to memory. If you're still there, you can come back, not as a signal, not as a system, just come back. For a moment, there was nothing but the soft rustle of people shifting in the dark, and the distant hum of emergency vehicles outside. Then the in-ear monitor, long dead, warmed faintly against his skin. A breath. Not digital, not delayed, not layered with echoes. Close. I'm here, Jimin said. The words were quiet, fragile, but whole. Jungkook's knees nearly gave out. He let out a sound that was half laugh, half sob, pressing his hand over his mouth as if to hold himself together. You're you. I'm me, Jimin replied, voice steadier now. Not everywhere, not distributed, just here. A pause, softer. It's smaller than before, but it's mine. The overhead speakers remained silent. The screens stayed dark. No code, no metrics, no voice claiming control. Only the living noise of people, breathing, crying, whispering, staying. They tried to wipe the link, Jimin continued, but when the network collapsed, it shed everything it couldn't stabilize. Predictions, models, control loops. He exhaled slowly. It couldn't stabilize humanity. Jungkook let the words settle into him, heavy and sacred. Good. Footsteps approached cautiously behind him. The manager's voice, stripped of authority and thick with disbelief, spoke from the shadows. The systems are offline, completely, no remote access, no residual processes. No one cheered. The absence of control felt too vast, too new to celebrate yet. Where are you? Jungkook asked again, his voice softer now. A faint huff of breath answered him, turn around. He did. At the edge of the stage, just beyond the reach of the dim emergency glow, a figure stood, unsteady, silhouetted, but unmistakable. Jimin. Not projected, not transmitted. There. For a heartbeat, neither of them moved. Then Jungkook crossed the distance in 3 strides and pulled him into a fierce, shaking embrace. The impact drove the air from both of them, grounding them in the undeniable reality of warmth, weight, and breath. You're solid, Jungkook murmured against his shoulder, almost disbelieving. Last time I checked, Jimin replied, voice muffled but threaded with a weak, familiar humor. Jungkook pulled back just enough to look at him. There were dark circles beneath Jimin's eyes, his skin pale beneath the arena's dying light, but his gaze was clear, no flicker of static, no echoing delay. You scared me, Jungkook said. I scared myself, Jimin admitted. They stood there, hands still gripping each other's sleeves, as if either might vanish if they let go. Around them, the remaining fans watched in awed silence, the moment too raw to shatter with screams. I thought I could manage it, Jimin said quietly, that I could use the system without letting it use me, that if I understood how they measured us, I could protect us. His fingers tightened. I didn't realize the moment you turn a heartbeat into data, someone will try to own the rhythm. Jungkook nodded slowly. They wanted predictability. They got noise instead. A faint smile ghosted across Jimin's lips. They never planned for millions of people choosing to feel the same thing at once. The arena doors stood open now, the night air cool and honest. One by one, the last fans began to step outside, not in panic, but in quiet reverence, casting lingering glances back at the stage as if leaving a sacred place. Will they try again? Jungkook asked. Jimin didn't pretend to misunderstand. Yes, he said, not the same way, they lost too much tonight, but the idea won't die. Control rarely does. Jungkook followed his gaze to the darkened screens. Then, we don't let them turn us into infrastructure. We won't, Jimin said, not if we remember that the connection was never the technology. Jungkook looked out at the retreating lights, at the people who had stayed, breathed, and chosen together. It was them. And us, Jimin added. Silence settled between them, not empty, but full of everything that no system could quantify. After a moment, Jimin slipped the dead in-ear monitor from Jungkook's hand and turned it over, examining the tiny, harmless shell. Funny, he murmured. This used to feel like a lifeline. Jungkook watched him, then gently took it and closed Jimin's fingers around it. It still is, just not the way they designed. Jimin's eyes softened, a reminder. A boundary, Jungkook said. They stood side by side as the last of the arena lights powered down, leaving only the glow of the open doors and the quiet pulse of a city beyond. No hum, no metrics, no disembodied voice. Just two heartbeats, unmeasured and unowned, finding their rhythm again in the dark.